All right, so first off, I want to thank the grace of heaven and the virtues of the masters, the mercy of the grand predecessors, transmitting masters, and everyone here today for the opportunity to continue with this topic. All right, so last time we were talking, it's just a previous slide to this one, but so the current section here is talking about cultivation as it's a gradual skill, okay, something that it's a process, all right, and we're either progressing or regressing. So if we're not progressing, we're actually regressing. So there's no such thing as standing still, right? So we have to keep that in mind, that we always have to push ourselves, to move forward, all right, to improve, to progress. Okay, so all enlightened beings have, they've all endured hardships and suffering, right? So basically, Holy Teacher says, which saints, sages, Buddhas, bodhisattvas, which of them have not suffered and endured hardships, right? They all have. I mean, it's part of the process, okay? So that's, there's nothing that, there's no other way, really. There's no other way, okay? But actually, we can learn, right? They've gone through, they've experienced it, they've achieved what hopefully we want to achieve as well, but with their guidance, right? Their teachings, their guidance. If we follow their guidance, their teachings, then it should be easier for us, right? We don't have to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. They've laid the groundwork for us to achieve as well, if we can follow in their footsteps, and we may not have to suffer as much, hardships along the way because of their guidance, right? So it's only when we don't listen, we don't follow their teachings, their guidance, the principles, then that's when we're going to encounter even more hardships, all right? So there's we shouldn't do that. Why make it so difficult? Okay. So, Holy Teacher says, if we are unwilling to give ourselves a little pressure, right? We've got to kind of push ourselves a little. How can heaven give us any pressure? If we do not have the vows, can heaven save us? We have to, nobody wants other people to, pressure them, right? Nobody wants to be pressured by other people to do something. So therefore, if we don't want pressure from the outside, then we have to give ourselves a little pressure, a little push. Sometimes, we just have too much inertia, right? Is that the right word? Yeah, inertia. That, we would rather not move if we don't have to, right? Okay, you can say we're kind of lazy. I mean, some people are motivated, right, and to do things, but for the most part, we're especially when we're talking about cultivation, maybe most people are not as really motivated to do it, to cultivate. So we do need to push ourselves, right? So we can't blame anyone for pushing us, and we can't blame anyone for not pushing us. The Buddhas, for example, we have to have that motivational force ourselves. Okay, it has to come from within. That's the only way. And if depending on how much we want to succeed, how much we want to achieve, then of course, then we apply as much force as needed. Okay, so we don't. If we're happy where we are, and say, okay, maybe I'll have to reincarnate again. Then we're not going to put in much effort, not going to push ourselves. But if we really want to transcend the cycle of reincarnation, then I think we would definitely, push ourselves harder. Okay, we have to do that ourselves. All right, so that's really that's really the only way. All right, the Buddhas cannot even help us. He said, so the Holy Teacher just said that heaven cannot, save us. I mean, we have to. That's what the vows are for, right? So when we take vows, that's that force, right? We talked about vows before. It's that force to push us, to motivate us to achieve. So that's why it's important to take those vows. It is that to apply that internal pressure and that push. Okay, so without vows, yeah, there's nothing to push us, nothing to push us forward. So that's why it's important. Okay, I mean, I know personally that this is yeah, no one really can push me to do something, and I have to push myself. So just like doing these classes, it's yeah, it can be kind of difficult in the sense that I have to try to come up with find a new topic every week, but no one else can do it, so I have to push myself. Obviously I have a responsibility too as a lecturer. I mean, that's basic responsibility here to do it if no one else is going to do it. So, but I also have to say that having done it, I'm grateful for this opportunity to do it, because it's really helped me a lot in learning and improving, mostly improving myself to be able to conduct these classes better. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's certainly, I think I've seen much improvement from before. So it's been a benefit. Okay, so if I didn't push myself, this wouldn't have happened. So definitely grateful. All right. Okay, so if Holy Teacher says, if we cultivate, then we are blessed, or fortunate, right? If we do not cultivate, then we are just bobbing up and down in the bitter sea, right? Busy with trivial matters, right? Worrying about this and that. Right, the bitter sea, of course, is the life that we're in. It's not just this life. It's the bitter sea is the metaphor for the samsara, which is another term for the cycle of reincarnation that we're in. That all sentient beings are caught up in this, right? Because they either don't know the way out, and they don't maybe they don't again try hard enough to get out of this endless cycle of suffering. Okay, so and then we're always busy with trivial matters, really. From the Buddha's point of view, anything in this world is pretty trivial. Okay, everything is trivial. The only thing you can say that's maybe not so trivial is life and death. Okay, but everything else is pretty trivial if you think about it. Because when death comes, none of this other stuff that we thought was important really matters, right? So that's from their point of view, which is from outside this cycle, right? From outside this bitter sea, when they see things, that's the view, and that's really the proper view of the world, of life, of everything. Okay, so we have to adopt that view, right? Take that view. Sometimes you say, right, the 10,000-foot view of things, right? The higher up, the further away you are, you see the big picture. Right? We have to see the big picture. If we don't see the big picture, then we're going to be caught up in all these things, and we're going to be worrying and pursuing all these little trivial things. Okay. So Holy Teacher says, it is difficult to think that we will not get old, right? But people are most afraid of getting old, right? Who doesn't? Well, I mean, especially when we see old people and we see, well, yeah, I mean, for the most part, it's not pleasant. I mean, it's just a lot of inconveniences, a lot of pain, suffering, or all sorts of things. Okay, so no one wants to really get old, especially if we're not healthy or have other problems. So as matters increase, right, people get old more easily, right? So this is like a common wisdom, if you will, I guess, the common knowledge, common wisdom, that right? The more stuff we worry about, it seems like we get older, right? You start seeing the gray hairs appear on our head. if you look at like a president, right? When they go into office, their hair looks fine, and then they look pretty young actually, and then when they leave office, they look pretty old. I mean, their hair is. If you look at like Obama, he went in looking pretty young, but then when he came out, his hair is starting to gray and looking somewhat older because he's got to worry about a lot of things to run the country, right? So for us, but it's the same thing, same idea for us. Maybe we don't have as many worries, but okay. So holy teacher, but teaches us a skill though. So we must have basically this mind of no motivation, basically. Yeah. So basically, I said we must act with Buddha nature spontaneity. Okay. This it's basically doing everything. It's natural. Natural meaning it's coming from the Buddha nature. Okay. It's not going through the ego. It's not going through our consciousness. Okay. Not going through conscious thinking. So no ego, all that. So there's no real selfish motivation or anything like that, right? So that's natural, and that's how Buddhas are when they do things. Right? It's coming directly from the Buddha nature. They will never have kind of biases based on sentiment, or feelings or anything like that. All right. So everything is done. You can say it's just right. Okay. So that's what holy teachers saying. We must have that type of mind. Okay, that mind. So this is what in Chinese we'll say wu wei. Okay, so it's generally translated as non-motivated action or unconditional action. But here I use Buddha nature spontaneity, which is very good because it's very spontaneous action. It has no premeditation, no no thinking about what we're going to do. It's just doing the right thing. And it comes from the Buddha nature. Okay, so cultivation, the Holy Teacher says, cultivation must return to this place, right? The state of no motive, this Buddha nature spontaneity, right? So ultimately, that's what we have to achieve, is wu-wei. We start with yo-wei, which is we have motive. We have, right? Because we aren't at that level yet. We have that ego. We still have our biases, our prejudices, preconceptions, everything. And these things kind of drive us. They influence us in certain ways, which may not be. So when we act, it may not be appropriate or perfect, or for that situation. And so it's because of that. It's because it's not directly coming from that Buddha nature. It's not spontaneous. Okay, so ultimately, that's where we have to reach that level, right? So no matter if others call us crazy or mad, right? We do not care because our holy teacher originally was called Crazy Jigong, after all, right? So, yeah, I mean, as the Jigong. Living Buddha, right? That was the title given to him when he was the Song Dynasty monk at the time. But he was kind of they call him a crazy monk too, So because he was very, he behaved very differently. Okay, he didn't behave like a monk. Okay, so it seemed kind of crazy what he did, but he was doing it. There was method or purpose to his madness, so to speak. Okay, so. But yeah, so other people might say, this cultivation, what you're doing, you're cultivating, you're sacrificing enjoyment and comfort and luxury and all that. They think we're crazy. But later on, holy teachers say, it's actually on the outside. That's what we appear to be crazy, according to the unenlightened or the ignorant masses, of people, sentient beings, okay? But inside, we are actually not crazy, okay? All right, so disciples, think about why we have vexations, worries, vexations. Holy teacher will say a sentence and we will follow. So here you can repeat after me. Here it says, these matters are resolvable. I am willing to change. I am willing to change myself first. Right? If I do not change, then others will not change with me. Therefore, matters can be resolved. I am willing to change. I am willing to change myself first. Okay, so this is very important, right? So besides trying to achieve that Buddha nature spontaneity, we have to realize that all matters, anything that we deal with, any situations, whatever, problems that we have, issues, human interaction issues, relationship issues, all these things and other types of matters, they're all resolvable. Right? It's just a question of whether we say, well, it has to meet my expectation of what it means to be resolved, and it has to satisfy me. So that's the ego, right? So if we can get rid of the ego, then it's not as restrictive, right, in terms of how you resolve something. But yeah, if we can get rid of the ego, get rid of all our biases, all these other things, then matters can be resolved, and they can be resolved to pretty much everyone's satisfaction. Okay, it's not to say that everyone will be 100% happy. Maybe part of it is there's compromise, right? We talk about people getting together, negotiating, making compromise, and that's something we have to learn too. Okay, so but what we shouldn't compromise on are principles. Okay, we should not compromise on the principles. If it will violate a principle, then we have to really think about that. Maybe find another way. Okay, so we should try not to compromise on the principles. But anything else we can compromise on. Okay, so and the other second important thing is that I have to be willing to change myself first. Now we can't say, oh yeah, the other person, you have to change first, and then once you change, then I'll change. It doesn't work that way. Okay, usually that's not going to happen, because they could take the same point of view and say, hey, why don't you change first? Okay, so then you're not going to get anywhere. So if I am willing to change first, so that's basically unconditional, right? There's no conditions attached. I'll do it first. And it's not saying, oh, I'll do it and then see if you do it. And if you don't do it, if you're not doing it, then I'm gonna stop changing myself. I'll go back to my old self. That doesn't make sense. Yeah, so in terms of a cultivator. So basically, yeah. So the change, again, we have to initiate that change ourselves. And so in other words, when we do that, then it's kind of like setting an example, right, for other people. And if they see that I'm willing to change, then they're most likely going to be willing to change too. Now, if they don't change, it shouldn't matter either for us. Okay, so I really, we should still change, because it means that we still have that ego if we're not willing to change, right? So being willing to change is one step in the right direction towards getting rid of that ego. All right, so we have to be willing to change ourselves first. All right, and then okay, so right, holy teachers. Okay, so do we know what this means, right? So matters can be resolved, but it starts with changing ourselves first, right? We must not say that matters are unchangeable. Right? Usually, we're at loggerheads because, no one's willing to change, right? You're standing in your position, I'm standing in mine, and, our positions don't change, right? So we have to change our positions. In other words, so we can't be standing here and say, oh, okay, this this is my view. It's, you're wrong, right? And that's we have to change that. Okay, so if we expect to make some kind of progress, right? So we should know that everything can be changed. For example, when our interaction with people is not harmonious and happy, if we change our attitude, then the other person will also change their attitude. However, we cannot just change for a moment and later say that it is useless, right? And revert back to our old ways. Right? This is not the spirit of a Tao cultivator. So, just like I was saying, it cannot be conditional. Right? We cannot condition our change on someone else's behavior. And because if we do that, then we're never going to make change. We're never going to make progress. I mean, if they don't change, then we're not changing either. So then who loses in that case, right? We might say, oh, they're going to lose, but we're losing too. Right? We're not going to achieve success in cultivation. So again, that's why cultivation is, that's why we should never judge other people, right? It doesn't matter what they do. We have to do our best, right? That's it. It's just like when you're taking a test, right, in school. It's like it doesn't matter if the other kids are whatever they're doing, if they're not doing well on the test, we have to do well ourselves, right? If we expect to put in the effort, study to do well on the test, right? It has nothing to do with the other students. So same thing, cultivation, right? So so that's that's an important thing to remember. I think too many times we are we do things conditionally, and that's a big mistake. So we have to be unconditional in what we're doing. Okay, make sure that we're doing the right thing. We're following the principles, regardless of what everyone else is doing. Okay, so that may be where it can become difficult, right? Because it's like you're kind of going against the stream, going against the tide, so to speak. I mean, if the people around you, none of them are cultivating, none of them are doing the same things, following the way your own cultivation. So it seems sometimes it can be kind of you can say like lonely in this cultivation, but I mean, so that's why we hopefully we kind of associate with other cultivators, and we can learn and support each other in cultivation, guide and give it. We can give a helping hand or get a helping hand from another cultivator when we stumble or when we need that encouragement to continue. So that's why we have the community of cultivators. It's just like in the past, it's the Sangha. All right, today we don't have that kind of, not everyone living in the monastery, but so that's why we do go to temple, and we have classes, and we get to know each other. And so that we can help each other out. So it doesn't have to be a lonely or solitary journey of cultivation, because that is very difficult to do. Okay, especially when in society it's kind of the opposite. It's going the other direction, and we're kind of going. We have to swim upstream against that flow. So the more support, from like-minded, people, the cultivators, the better, right? That can help us in our cultivation. All right. Okay. Okay. So think about it, right? What kind of person was I before I received the Tao? Right. After receiving the Tao, I've changed. Now, obviously, Holy Teacher here is talking to staff members and temple hosts and lecturers and above. So they've supposedly been cultivating for a while. Before, right? He was asking how many were cultivating or have received the Tao at least for like 10 years, 20 years. All right, so we're new, maybe we haven't changed yet. But, okay, so it says, no, I stopped being a killer. Okay, so I don't know. I don't think, killers, we generally, we probably don't bring killers to receive the Tao. But it could also mean killing, animals maybe. But, I was a gambler or an arrogant person. I stopped doing anything that was bad. Okay, so this means that we are cultivating Tao and that we are improving. Not only that, I am vegan and not, or vegetarian, and not eating meat and not drinking alcohol, and also not, smoking, right, tobacco, whatever. Okay, so these are like, the vices that we've gotten rid of, bad habits. So I have changed or broken these bad habits, big, major bad habits. Right? So given that the major things can be changed, why can't we change the little things? Right? It's always those little things that are harder to change, even though the big things sometimes, yeah, it takes big effort to change the big, like I know, like people who smoke, because it's kind of like an addiction, and so that definitely becomes difficult to change, to get rid of, but it can be done. If we have that will, right, where there's a will, there's a way. Okay, so we have to have that will, the mind, the strength of mind, strength of will to do things. Now, Holy Teachers, though, is talking about the little things that, yeah, we might change the big bad habits, but what about the little things? So this is all down to our willingness to change. Right? If we are willing, then no matter how small or insignificant the problem is, we must. I guess there's a idiom or something that says, we must cut the weeds and dig up the roots, right? In other words, eliminate the problem at the source, okay? So are we willing to let these bad habits and shortcomings influence us? Holy Teacher is only afraid that disciples do not know, do not admit to, right, are not aware of, and are not willing to change, okay? So that's... first of all, yeah, we have to know. It's almost, it's kind of similar. I mean, to like the AA Alcoholics Anonymous, right? It's for people who are alcoholics, for them to change, to stop being an alcoholic, right? They have these I think it's a 10-step process or whatever, right? The first, we have to admit that we have these problems. Right? If we don't admit to it, then we don't think there's anything to change. So that's always the first step, is to admit that, well, we're not perfect, or that we have these bad habits, or these idiosyncrasies that we need to change. Okay, so that this is all psychology, but it's true. Okay, so on the path of Tao cultivation, Holy Teacher and Buddhas see us grow and mature, and take steps up or forward, but they wish not to see us take steps backwards. So obviously the Buddhas, they want to see us succeed. They want to see sentient beings become Buddhas, enlightened beings. Okay, so obviously they don't want us, especially once we are on this path of cultivation, towards Buddhahood, that they want us to succeed. Of course, they don't want to see us, start on this path and then give up, or fall back, go backwards again. Then that's kind of that's a shame, really. It's a pity. All right, so it is the same principle with us, right? We wish to see our companions and fellow cultivators do and cultivate better, right? So hopefully, I mean, as cultivators ourselves, I'm sure we all want our fellow cultivators to succeed. Okay, so we should definitely not say, I'm going to pursue Buddhahood myself at the expense of other cultivators. No, we can't do that. Okay, that's selfish. Okay, so we should try to help each other as much as possible. Okay, help others succeed. Even if maybe someone else's, they're more, I don't know. I mean, usually if they're more advanced, then they may not need our help. But we should always try to help others. And if we can if we help others, even if let's say, usually, so it's the other way around. So when we're at a more, let's say we've progressed more, and we help kind of newer, cultivators, and actually, if we can help them succeed, we also stand to benefit in terms of, well, I mean, we're not thinking about merits, okay, but I'm just saying this is kind of like a side effect or a side benefit, if you will, that if they succeed, then we also succeed. Yeah, I mean, it's, but we shouldn't think of it that way. We should always just think, based on compassion, and mercy, and kindness, and all that, to just help others to succeed. I mean, we're not perfect, obviously, so we can't, always, we won't always maybe give them the right guidance, whatnot, but we do our best, following the principles. Okay. So that's why it's also important, of course, we have to cultivate ourselves, make sure that we are improving, right? Okay, so so people think that I am inverted or deranged, but we are only inverted in body, or you say on the exterior, on the outside, but not in the mind. Okay, so if our mind is inverted, are we going to be here listening to the principles? Okay, so yeah, the inverted mind is basically. It's basically what the normal people, okay, so the common people, you can say the I don't know, I shouldn't say ignorant masses, but those who are not enlightened, they're not aware or not awakened. Okay, so they are actually inverted, okay, in their mind, because they're pursuing all the wrong things. They're pursuing all the things that will continue to lead them to suffering and cycling through this samsara, okay, and reincarnation. Okay, so we are not inverted in mind, because what we are pursuing is the path to leave this cycle and to transcend, to become enlightened. Okay, so so if we're here listening, like to these classes, then then that should mean that we are, at least in mind, in our heart and mind, that we are not inverted. Okay, so Holy Teacher's principles are very simple, right? But with this mind, we will become a Buddha, right? So yeah, that's really, well, it's not all it takes, but this is very important. Okay, is to have that right mind, right? So you can say that that's part of the Noble Eightfold Path, right? So having that proper view, proper mind, that of what we are seeking, right? We are seeking the truth. We are seeking the true principles. We are seeking to basically transcend this cycle of suffering. Okay. So if we have that right mind, then that's the big first step to becoming a Buddha. So we must be able to let go or relinquish and open up or broaden our heart and mind. However, if we do not first use this non-inverted, it's really a non-inverted mind, then how can we let go and open up, right? So when we are not yet at the higher level, we start with motivated action to work towards non-motivated action, or the Buddha nature spontaneity, right? So that's why I was saying earlier, you start with yo wei, which is, we have motivation. Okay, I want to do this for maybe because I have problems, and if I cultivate, gain merits, I can maybe resolve these problems, whatever, or karma. Okay, so but that's with motivation. Okay, so but we eventually we have to work towards just doing those same things that we're doing. But without the motivation saying, I'm doing it for merits. Okay, so we should, and also from gradual cultivation, right, this step-by-step process of cultivation towards sudden enlightenment. So ultimately, and the Holy Teacher says this process cannot be rushed. Okay, so now the gradual cultivation, that's you can say that that's necessary. All right, it's not. Without this gradual cultivation, I can become suddenly enlightened. truly awakened, enlightened. Now, some people, like the sixth patriarch, Wei Neng, okay, so he, sorry. Okay. So he basically, you can say that he's pretty much, although it seemed like he becomes suddenly enlightened, but he was also cultivating, doing the gradual process of cultivation. So we can't, it has to be both, okay? But what Holy Teacher is saying, we have to go through that process of gradual cultivation in order to achieve that enlightenment, okay? So that sudden enlightenment, it's, we need both. And that's why, you can say that the moment that we receive the Tao is that sudden enlightenment. Okay, at just that one moment, but afterwards, that moment is gone, and we can't maintain that moment of enlightenment, that awakening, and so we still have to gradually cultivate ourselves. Yeah, that's all Buddhas, past, present, and future, goes through the same process, right? So there is, again, process can't be rushed. There's no shortcuts, right? Okay, right, so that's this one here, right? So, nobody can get to 10 without first, starting with 1, right? So this is a process that we must take charge of through, and, go through the experience and experience it ourselves. If we are able to go through this process, then we are very fortunate and blessed, because we are putting it into practice and accomplishing or completing or fulfilling ourselves. Right? If we are unable to go through this process, then we are obstructing ourselves, impeding ourselves, and cannot blame the Buddhas. Okay, that's what Holy Teacher says. So basically, if we don't try, if we don't put in the effort to cultivate, we can't blame anyone. Can't blame the Buddhas that if we don't succeed. All right, it's because basically if we don't do it right, then we're just obstructing ourselves, preventing ourselves from succeeding. All right, no one else. Yeah, in fact, anything that happens, any situation that occurs is, it's not because of that situation that caused us to fail or to not succeed. It's because of how we react to it. So again, that's pointing finger back to us. All right, so we are responsible ultimately for our success and failure. Right, no one else. You really cannot blame anyone. Okay. All right. So we have to make sure that we take charge of this process, right, and experience it for ourselves. There's no other way. We have to experience. Just like when we received the Tao, we received the 3 treasures, but we can't just. It's not just the knowledge, right? It's that experience of kneeling down before the altar, and having the transmission, getting that transmission. You have to experience that. So we can't just tell other people about the 3 treasures. They didn't experience it themselves. They have to go through that experience themselves. Okay, that's why I say it's not just the knowledge. It's that experience. Okay. Okay. So when we are blamed or admonished, we must be grateful, right? If the person, if they don't point out our shortcomings, then we will not have the opportunity for improvement. Okay, so that's very important. That's the proper view of that. Okay, so I know that no one likes to be criticized, no one likes to be admonished or blamed. Yet, that is the way for us to. That is, basically an opportunity is given to us to improve. Whether we accept it or not is up to us. Right. So if we really want to improve, then we are willing to accept that, be grateful that they pointed it out, and then we can use that to improve ourselves. Right? If we reject it, then we've lost that opportunity to improve ourselves. right? Because we're still going to be the same old way, and we're going to commit the same fault or whatever it was. Okay. So, so just like Zulu, he's a disciple of Confucius, right? Has the magnanimity of hearing a fault is worthy of joy. So basically, what he's saying is that when he hears that other people point out his faults, he's happy with joy because then he is given this opportunity to change, right? To improve himself, to get rid of that fault, right? So that's why he's happy to hear that here. So this is kind of the opposite of normal people who don't want to hear their faults or shortcomings pointed out to them. Now, Yi the Great, he's the Sage King who kind of stopped the floods or took, managed the floods in China back then. He has the virtue of hearing goodness is worthy of worship. Now, this is kind of the other side. Basically, when you hear that someone has done some good, did a good deed, or they have virtue, or manifested some virtue, whatever, kindness, anything good, that it's worthy of praising them and well, you're saying worship here, but basically, yeah, learning from that, okay, and certainly praising. So that's on the other side of things, okay. So again, when we hear good things from others, we praise them and we learn from them. When others point something kind of faults in ourselves, then we should also be happy. So that first one where others are do some good, we can rejoice in their, whatever goodness. But when we are on the receiving end of hearing faults about ourselves, then we should also be happy to know that we have this opportunity to change ourselves, to improve ourselves. Okay, so it's always the good. We see the good in others, and we reflect on the you can say the bad or the faults in ourselves. Okay, so it's never the other way around where we self-praise or we expecting others to praise us for good, and we're always criticizing others for their faults. Okay, so that's the opposite of what is being said here, right? So that's the opposite of what a cultivator should do, right? Okay, so we must be our own master, have one's own judgment, be brave and resolute, and not lose faith and confidence because of what people say. We must never follow the crowd blindly, right? If what people say are reasonable and principled, then we must self-reflect and improve, right? In other words, if they're saying things about us, or it could be any other things, but it has to be follow the principles. It has to be reasonable. Then yeah, we need to reflect on that. Okay, and if they're talking about us, then yeah, definitely reflect and then try to improve ourselves. But if it's unreasonable and without principle, then we should choose and stick to what is good, right? So there's basically, if others are giving us bad advice, okay, it's not according to the principles, then that's a case where we can kind of ignore that and advice. And if we know better, right, we know the right principles, and we know that it's what they're telling us is kind of goes against those principles, then we'll just stick with the principles that we know, the good principles, and follow those instead. Okay. So again, use our wisdom. Don't blindly just listen to what people are saying, telling us, right? Okay. So yeah. So wisdom again. We have to have some wisdom. All right. So nobody becomes a Buddha only after meeting all the conditions. Everybody achieves by slowly walking and doing, and encountering difficulties and setbacks along the way. Right. So can we say, wait until I have cultivated very well and meet all the conditions before I start walking or cultivating? Right. Wait until everything is settled at home before I go and cultivate. Right. Many of us have this concept, which is a negative approach. Cultivation is not negative, or you can say, or passive, I guess you can say, right? Faith in Buddha also is not negative or passive. Okay, so Tao cultivation can make us more active and vigorous in pursuing the perfect or harmonious state of life. Okay, so this is another important point that a lot of times you hear, it's basically an excuse for people say, oh, I need to make more money. No, so you ask them to come to the temple to listen to class, and they say, no, I have to work, I have to make money, or I have to, I got, all this household chores, I got to deal with the home stuff first. Make sure, I got family is all taken care of and everything before I can do that. Or, some people will say, after I've settled down my life, after I get older, then, once everything's kind of settled, then I'll come and cultivate. But, then, one of the things that we have to remember is that life is unpredictable and it's impermanent. We have no idea how long we have to live. Okay, we might think we're healthy, but anything can happen depending on our karma. Okay, so the longer we push off cultivation, and basically cultivation meaning, performing merits and nurturing our virtues, we don't do those things, then our karma will catch up to us. And, so we've talked about this in the past too. So we have to, unfortunately, the problem is, I guess when we don't see the results, I guess, when we don't see the the changes or whatever in our lives as a result of, let's say, our cultivation, merits and virtues, then we think, well, it doesn't seem to do much. So I can put it off, but we actually, sometimes what we don't see is a blessing. If we see that, our life is not, we don't have like major karmic events happening to us, but there's some minor stuff that's happening. It's not perfect, but perhaps it's because of our cultivation that we are performing merits, that we are nurturing our virtues, that none of the big stuff has happened. So we can think of it that way. So again, this is kind of the having the proper mindset, right? The positive mindset, thinking positive. When we look at things from the positive view, it's more encouraging. Okay, it's more helpful for us in cultivation, right, than the negative. And so Holy Teacher is saying, also, we shouldn't be passive and we shouldn't be negative about cultivating. Okay, so we're setting up conditions for ourselves to, only when these conditions are met, then I'm going to cultivate. It may not happen. Okay, so we shouldn't wait. We can't wait. So people say, belief in Buddha and Tao cultivation are what negative or passive people do. In fact, this is not true. On the contrary, a Tao cultivator is more active and vigorous, right, than ordinary people are, because the cultivator has seen through everything and therefore has achieved everything. So it's having that proper view, the right view of the world and life, okay, so that we can see through the material pursuits. Only when we can see through that and see through this life, okay, to realize that, well, if I don't change myself, I don't cultivate, then I'm going to be, it's not just this life that I'm going to suffer, the next life I'll suffer, maybe I'll suffer more. So once we see through all that, we realize all that, then that's why then we're more active, right? We're going to be more vigorous in our cultivation. It's because people, actually ordinary people, are, they don't care about cultivation. They just want to pursue the comfort and luxury now, without really thinking about consequences, future consequences. Okay, so that's really what's passive, all right, because they're not really doing anything to change their fate. Okay, so the path of Tao cultivation is very long, right? Just like a train, how many sentient beings are waiting for us to pick them up? Right? In the past, we ourselves have been picked up by others. Therefore, we also must bring others on board. Yeah, so that's again, that's what a bodhisattva would do, is we're trying to save sentient beings, so in this case, Holy Teacher is using the analogy of a train. I mean, we usually talk about the Dharma boat, okay, the boat that gets us out of the bitter sea, but the train is a good analogy too, because the train, makes a lot of stops along the way, and it picks up people, right? I guess people might get off the train too, but those are people who've given up on the path of cultivation, I guess. But yeah, anywhere we go, we can pick up people, bring them on the train on this path of cultivation. Okay, so yeah, so that's kind of part of our basic duty, I guess, if you will. All right. Okay. Okay, so yeah, actually, I think that's like, okay, so that's kind of like this section. Now, there's some kind of like additional material, kind of, or like scripture stuff that's part of this this whole topic, and it's part of this section. There's actually another section after it, so it looks like it's going to go on for another week. I hope it's not boring people, but anyways, so here's some more guidance here. So this is, watch the small things, little things. Okay, so this is saying, okay, so it says a small hole sinks the boat. Okay, so a tiny insect poisons the body. A minor mistake ruins the matter. Right, so the point here is that slight faults, minor faults that are not corrected or changed are destructive. Okay, so that's the, what this is getting at, these points here, that just like we were just saying earlier, a holy teacher is saying, why can't we change those little things, those little bad habits, or those little vices, or little faults, or whatever? If we're not careful, those things, those little, I mean, we think it's minor. It's like, oh, it's nothing. But they can really ruin things for us. Okay, they can just ruin it I mean, we maybe, because of those little things that we cannot succeed in cultivation. Okay, so that's why it's very important to not just focus on the big things. Obviously, the big ones, those are the things that we should probably address first, the big bad habits or the vices or faults. But then we cannot neglect the minor ones too. Okay, so those are also very important. And they could be, it could be that difference between success and failure, okay, or whatever. So yeah, we should keep that in mind. All right. Okay, so yeah, so we should also, self-reflect or introspect. Right, so extinguish vexations and subdue all demons to escape the 5 skandhas and 3 realms. Okay, so vexations, again, worries. We have too many things that we maybe worry about, we think about. Usually it's like the more things we have, the more things we worry about. It's like, oh, I just got this new car, or I got this new whatever it is, or whatever. I'm worried about damage to the car or whatever. Okay, and so the more things we have, generally, the more worries we have. Okay, so that's why we should live a more simple life. Why do we have all these things if we're going to worry about them? And then, so the 5 skandhas, right, are these basically. Now this is kind of I use slightly different words from what we've used in the past, or what you might generally see. Form, basically. So the 5 skandhas really are the way basically we view the world and what conditions us to the reality that we see, well, you know, this reality that we're in, and basically it influences us, our way of thinking, what we say, and our actions. Okay, so basically form, right? So because we have senses, right? So the form refers to, you know, that's the first of the 5 skandhas. That's our interface to the world, okay, or this physical reality. Okay, so it's the objects of our senses, and it's also our sense, you can say our sense organs. Okay, so like the eyes, right, and the objects, anything that you can see, right, our ears, any sound that we can hear, etc. Okay, so that's what the form refers to. Then after the form, so after we are, let's say, we are exposed, right, to these forms through our senses, then of course, unless we're dead, right, we're going to have sensation, right? We're going to have feeling. We're going to, you know, like we're going to notice, oh, there's light, or, you know, that there's heat, or there's cold, or, you know, it's going to feel whatever. Okay, so that's sensation, that's feeling. That's the low level sensation. Okay, then the next level up is conception, or I think sometimes it's the word is perception. But this is where then we have an idea of what that sensation is. Okay, or, you know, what's causing it, or where it's coming from. Okay, so that's an idea, conception of, oh, you know, based on my senses, I can tell that is, oh, this is light, or this is blue light. Now, actually, okay, so you could say there's like blue light, or you know, different colors of light, or different shapes, or whatever. Okay, and then at the next level is differentiation, which really, actually, you can say also discrimination. So you're differentiating, discriminating between the different types of the idea, based on the ideas that we had, or conception of the feelings, the sensations. Okay, so this is where then we say, oh, yeah, this, you know, I know the difference between like hot and cold, or I know that, you know, maybe we have like a preference. This is also, you can say, biases, where we have a preference of one over the other. Okay, so we're differentiating, or we're discriminating. And then at the highest level then is intent. So sometimes we say conscious attachments, because at that point we are this intent, we have an idea, I mean, well, not an idea, but we have, you know, it could be a thought, but intention is kind of, you can say, maybe before pre-thought, but this is based on the previous one, which is the differentiation or discrimination of things. So based on my likes and dislikes, oh, I like cold, or I like hot, then, you know, I'm going to do something based on that, on what I'm feeling now. Okay, so it's going up. This is like this chain that goes up into the higher and higher level in our mind, and then at that final level, this is where we decide we want to do something about what we're feeling, what the sensation is. Okay, so based on, again, our conception and ideas, and our differentiation or discrimination of things. Okay, so this is called the 5 skandhas, and this is kind of defines. And if you think about it, this is how we this is how we operate. Okay, this is how we view the world. It goes through this whole process, right? And, you know, we end up having likes and dislikes and attachments, you know, biases, all that. So, and it's because of this, and this kind of continues the process. Okay, so this kind of, you can say it's kind of a feedback loop that feeds on itself, and so, but this is kind of how we view reality through this. And actually, in the Heart Sutra, it says that this is empty. There's no such thing. I mean, this is not real. Okay, so therefore, you know, by following this, I mean, this is kind of biasing or clouding our view of what true reality is. Actually, you know, it's tough to get away from this, though. but having the right views, knowing the truth, knowing the right principles, then that will hopefully guide us. And it takes a lot of practice to the practice. It's not like there's one secret formula that the Buddhists didn't give us one secret formula to overcome all this stuff to become a Buddha, right? It's all those things that's why we talked for a year. I mean, and Buddha talked for 49 years, because there's no one formula to give us to do it. So there are all these different things that we have to do. Get rid of our desire. Well, ultimately, you can say, if you want to get to the root of it, is our desires and attachments. Okay, so, and our ignorance. So if we can get rid of those, then we've gone a long way to trying to achieve it. Right. So, and then the three realms is or at least the way the Buddhists in Buddhism, they talk about the three realms as the realm of desire, realm of forms, and realm of no forms. Okay, so we are living in the realm of desire. Okay, so and these are the three realms that we're in. So all these three realms is still within the realm of reincarnation. Okay, even though you're like, wow, they're at a high level of no forms, but yet unless they're enlightened, they're going to still end up reincarnating. So, I mean, it's a longer cycle for them, but yeah. So we're kind of stuck in here. This is all within the samsara. Okay. Okay. So, but anyways, so if we look for our own faults, even when we have no faults, then not only will we improve our virtue, but also be free from trouble. Okay. So this is not to say that we necessarily we're trying to find fault where there isn't any. What it means is that we're always self-reflecting. Okay, we're always introspecting. Excuse me. Always, we're not blaming others. We're not looking at other people's faults. We're looking at ourselves and always trying to see if maybe there is something that we weren't aware of, like we have a little fault or mistake. I mean, because let's face it, people don't always point them out to us, right? They may see something that's maybe a fault that we have, but they may not want to, it's kind of maybe embarrassing to bring it up. And so they might not say anything. And so therefore, we have to be aware ourselves. It's very important that, ultimately we have to rely on ourselves. We can't rely on others to necessarily point things out to us, right? So we have to step in and do it ourselves. And that's what this is really saying here, we have to make sure. So other people might, sometimes they point it out, but then otherwise they may not. And we have to make sure that we always look for any little thing, be aware, be mindful of whether we are committing any faults or mistakes or anything. So again, and when we can do that, then that shows that we have this virtue, because we're trying to self-improve. We're trying to improve ourselves, okay? We're not trying to blame anyone or whatever. So ultimately we will, and if we can always catch ourselves, right? Like I have a little minor fault and I realize it, then next time I can be aware that I don't commit that fault again. So obviously, eventually we'll be free from trouble. So like Yen Hui, who's the young disciple of Confucius, right? He's known as not committing the same mistake twice or the same fault twice. Why? Because this is what he does this. So maybe no one else is gonna tell him, oh, you did this wrong, or this is something that you need to improve in. He kind of, I mean, maybe he did get some, but like I said, I mean, he's self-reflecting and introspecting all the time to be aware of that within himself and catching it within himself before, maybe before even anyone else notices. So again, that's that's the type of effort we need to put in. Okay, all right. Okay, and then so if others are at fault, but we treat them as if they have no fault, then not only are we kind, but also can resolve grievances. So this is kind of the other side of things, and when we're talking about other people. So we're looking for faults in ourselves, but we're not looking for faults in others, right? We're not like standing ready to point out someone's mistakes and faults, okay? But if they do make a mistake and fault, and we shouldn't be saying, hey, look, hey, you made a mistake, and especially not in front of everyone, okay? So, basically, we can be kind to them and go about it in a kind of a roundabout way, not too direct as to, so that kind of takes, that's what we call tact, right? TACT, tact. Or, we have to use some wisdom when we approach that kind of issue, okay, that situation. But, so it shows that we are kind, and it can resolve any kind of grievances or, differences, complaints, whatever. So obviously, the person then will have no reason to be, mad at us or anything, because we're not like making them look foolish or embarrassed, right? So this is obviously this is something that we have to kind of learn to do. Okay, it's not. Sometimes we can be too direct. I know I tend to be kind of direct sometimes, and I apologize to people if I am too direct sometimes. But that's something that I need to work on. It's just like so I heard this story about from a transmitting master in Taiwan, transmitter Chen Meizhu. Okay, so she's in Fusan, which is where our grand predecessor had lived, and she was relating a story about, because she was like learning or studying with our predecessor, Dada Zhenjing, okay, the sage of great virtue, and she was, I think she said that she was only like I don't know, she may have been just a teenager then, but she was, or maybe a little bit older. But they were studying, and they were like reading, I think, from the 4 books, and so our predecessor was basically, they had the little study group, and they were each kind of reading some passages from it, and so she read a passage, and she made a mistake on one of the words in terms of the pronunciation, but our predecessor did not say anything, okay, at the time. It's only when she was, they were leaving, right, and the transmitter Chen, well, back then she was not transmitter yet, but when she was leaving, our predecessor went up to her and says, "Oh, look, this word, right, in this passage that you read, look up this word in the dictionary." And he didn't really tell her why, but she remembered, and she went home and she looked up the word, and then she realized, oh, she pronounced it wrong. But that is the type of the kindness, if you will, the virtue of our predecessor. He never gets mad at anyone. He never scolds anyone or points out people's mistakes, directly. But so that's the type of guidance that we should strive to give to others when they make a mistake. Because once you do that, and she, so she really was grateful, because basically, she learned something, right? And because when you do it yourself, right, when you realize your own mistake yourself, that is when you are most willing to change it, or most able to change it yourself. Because if other people point it out to us, sometimes, again, we get defensive, right? So we put up that wall and try to block it. And so we're not as willing, we're more reluctant to change because, oh, they're telling me to change. Why should I do that? But if we realize it ourselves, then we're going to be more willing to and more, I guess, motivated, if you will, to change, to improve ourselves. So that's always the best, right? Okay, so, all right, anyways. We should always introspect at any time and always be disciplined. Again, this is one of the keys in the practice, in the cultivation, always introspecting and always be self-disciplined, okay? So faults can be changed, and change comes from knowing, right? So definitely we have to know that, really anything we can change as long as we know it, okay? So if we're not aware, we don't know about it, then obviously we don't know to change. Okay, so knowing. So whether it's knowing, becoming self-aware ourselves, that's the best. But if it's other people pointing out to us and letting us know, that should be just as good. Okay, and knowing comes from seeking and requiring from ourselves. Okay, so yeah, we should, again, this is kind of this motivation, this self-motivation, if you will, that we should try to seek to improve ourselves all the time and do everything that we can to improve ourselves and to find our own faults, to improve, to correct. Okay, so that's kind of, you can say, seeking or requiring from ourselves or demanding of ourselves. Okay, so that's always, this is part of the, you can say, the pressure or the pushing from within. Okay, we need that force. The important thing in dealing with others is always to self-reflect. Once again, that's why it's so important. We shouldn't be quick to blame others. We should always. It's just like when we hear the teachings, okay, from whether it's from the Buddhas or even transmitters or lectures giving classes, the teachings. Sometimes we might think, you might hear something and say, oh yeah, this applies to this person, right? But actually, we should always apply it to ourselves, right? Use these teachings on ourselves first, right? That's the first thing. Is not try to say, oh, use this to say, oh yeah, see, I was right about that person. They don't do this or whatever. We need to use it on ourselves. So that's part of the self-reflection. Okay, so always taking whatever, maybe, let's say, holy teacher is talking to a particular person about their problem, but we shouldn't then say, oh, afterwards, go to that person and say, oh, see, look, holy teacher told you, we should, that's holy teacher can do that, okay, because holy teacher is a Buddha. But we really aren't qualified to do that. We should just use that, whatever holy teacher said, to that person, we should apply it to ourselves, okay. That is the way. That's how a cultivator should be, and that is the way to improve ourselves. Okay. All right. So we should not blame or complain about heaven and people, right? Not to be angry with the world or to lament over one's fate. Again, we once we realize or understand karma, the principle of causality, then there's really no one else to blame, okay? Okay, so able to self-improve with success and achieve self-reliance, right? So ultimately, this is what we've been talking about, self-improvement, and, through what, the self-reflection, okay, process, and, to achieve that self-reliance. Yeah, I mean, we can't depend on other people, really. Ultimately, we have to rely on ourselves to succeed. Okay, that's what I said earlier. Okay, so require from oneself in ways that the sages, in the ways of the sages. So, we hear stories of the sages, the saints, bodhisattvas, Buddhas, how they cultivated and they're always very self-demanding, right? We should be the same way, right? Again, that's part of the self-reliance. We have to demand of ourselves, request of ourselves, push ourselves. Right? So the so-called blame, to blame ourselves, right, to hold ourselves accountable as we blame, or in the way that we blame others. So basically, right, I mean, if we do blame others, we should blame ourselves at least, in the same way, or we hold others accountable. We should definitely hold ourselves more accountable. Okay, so right, so it's not just towards others, it's always towards ourselves. And the same on the other side, we should forgive others as we forgive ourselves too, because a lot of times we tend to forgive ourselves, right? But we may not forgive others. But if we're going to forgive ourselves, then we should definitely forgive others as well. So now knowing people is often easy, but knowing ourselves is often difficult. Yeah, this is also, again, we think, oh yeah, we know this other person, we know what they're like, but do we really know what we're like? Do we know our own faults? Do we know, all these little things? So knowing, especially sometimes it is difficult to try to dig in, really self-reflect and dig into the finding those skeletons in our own closet, right? And so that's something that, and facing it and dealing with it, right? It's easy to see other people's stuff, say, oh yeah, we're talking about them. But when it comes to ourselves, that's difficult. But yeah, this is all part of self-reflection, introspection. Okay, so we have to do that in cultivation. But yeah, so these other things, it's basically like talking about the golden rule, how we treat others, we should treat how we want others to treat us, we should also treat them, similar. Okay, let's see. Okay, so it is easy to tolerate and forgive our own faults, but difficult to tolerate, forgive others' faults. Yeah, same thing. Basically, again, it's like we have a double standard, right? We have a much higher standard for other people, and we have a low standard for ourselves. So again, it should be the other way around. We have a higher standard, set a higher standard for ourselves, and a lower standard. Remember earlier, I don't know, it was last week or the week before, right? Holy Teacher said, set it to 0. So no expectations for other people, but obviously we should still have high expectations for ourselves. Okay. So we can see 100 feet away, but cannot see our own back, right? We notice the slightest details, but cannot count our own eyelashes, right? Therefore, those who often see their own faults are equivalent to Tao. Oh, okay, so yeah, again, we always see other people's faults, right? It's our eyes are always focused on other people, on the outside, right? We're not looking at ourselves. We should look at ourselves in the mirror. And if there's no mirror, yeah, we should self-reflect, and this is like, in the Bible too, right? It says, we can see the speck of dirt in someone else's eye, but we don't see that big log or plank of wood in our own eye, right? Same thing. That we're always looking outward. So that's why this is, again, reinforcing the idea we need to self-reflect, introspect. Okay, when we can do that, right? So when we can see our own faults, then that's the Tao, right? It's not to see the faults in others. That's not the Tao. To see it in ourselves, that's the Tao. Okay, so that is kind of the opposite, if you will, of what most people do. Okay, all right. Okay, let's see. Let's go on here. All right. Okay, so a person who can accomplish great matters not only has extraordinary ability, right? Such a person uses wisdom and guiding benevolence and moves forward in the right direction. Again, so important that we always use wisdom, even though, say benevolence, hey, that's good, right? But we have to still have wisdom to guide us in how we do it. Just like, for example, we do charity, right? That's benevolence. But we can't just blindly do it, okay? So just, we may actually end up either not helping or harming the person in the long run, okay? So we have to use our wisdom, right? So it uses benevolent heart and is driven by the right compassion, mercy, and pity. right? Uses courage in practice and has the right expectations of ability and conduct. Courage is very important. That we, again, sometimes we're afraid to do things, or we are afraid to face our own, things that we need to change in ourselves. But we need that courage to overcome and to be able to do it. A cultivator has a broad mind, forgiving and tolerant, follows the regulations and proprieties to change and improve ordinary customs, right? So the customs of the ordinary people or of society. If you look at, say society, maybe in the U.S., let's say it's very, very liberal, I guess. Yeah, but some of the things are not necessarily right or the correct, it's not good. And so we shouldn't follow it, and we should try to change it. At least not follow it, and encourage those who we can influence to not follow those if they're not correct. If not, okay. But at the same time, we should still have a broad mind, be forgiving and tolerant. Okay, so sometimes we can't influence people or change people, and that's fine. We do our best. Okay. A cultivator smiles often to establish good affinity with everyone, transforms the public in good faith with sincerity. Okay, so yeah, so we should always not be frowning all the time, right? So we should always try to smile. And that kind of gives, you can say, good vibes to other people, right? Other people feel good when they see a smile. So we should always do that. Try to do that. I mean, no matter if we're in a bad mood or whatever, we should always try to smile, and always be kind, to others, so that we can always establish good affinity. We don't want to establish any bad affinity, because then that's going to come back and bite us in the end. Okay, so a cultivator shows talent to benefit the people, is humble and amiable, gentle and tactful, right? So the cultivator, right, they use their talents, their skills to benefit others. So it's not just for self-benefit. Okay, it's to try to benefit others, but at the same time, they're even if they have talent, they have skills, they're still humble, and they're friendly and amiable, harmonious, the gentle and tactful. So all these qualities that we try to foster in ourselves. Again, this is the whole refinement process, right? We're like rocks that are have sharp corners and edges and points, and as we encounter situations or other people, and we're rubbing against each other, that's part of the refinement process. Then it wears down those sharp pointy edges and corners until it's smooth and round, and that's the ideal. Then we can be in harmony with everyone, right? Okay, so a cultivator shows love to warm the world, and uses wisdom to harmonize the world. Okay, so wisdom, very important. Again, yeah, and show the love to everyone, all sentient beings, so that animals included, right? So we should not have any grievances towards anyone, and so that's how we can basically be in harmony with everyone, with the whole world, right? A cultivator gives up wealth to help the poor, speaks positive and encouraging words to transform evil into good. Yeah, so this is like giving wealth to help the poor is charity, right? We do charity work, and we always try to be positive and encouraging to people, especially if they're doing something bad, and or maybe not so bad. I mean, sometimes like kids, right? Children, maybe they have some bad habits, or they're not willing to do stuff. Then we should always try to use positive, encouraging ways to guide them towards good. Okay, so quiescence nourishes the body. Frugality or thrift nourishes virtues, right? With diligence, one is not lacking or deficient, right? So yeah, we have to put in the earnest effort work. With agility, one is effective. Okay, so agility also you can say maybe we have to be flexible and we have to be quick on our feet and all that. Unmatched renown comes without bragging, right? So we don't really have to say, oh, this is look at my accomplishments, my achievements. If we do things the right way through our virtues and all that, then if we're a true cultivator, people will recognize, people will know. Okay, so morality is in our respect and sincerity. Okay, so those are important. We have to respect everyone, all life, and be sincere. Okay. So a broad-minded person's manner or aura is as broad and open as the sea and sky. Okay, so that's a broad person's mood is like the bright moon and light breeze. So it's bright and it's like this comfortable breeze. A broad-minded person's moral character is as admirable as a high mountain. So it has great, it's great moral integrity. A broad-minded person's thinking is awakened and enlightened, right? It's refreshing and filled with wisdom. Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Yeah, last one. All right. So because of great magnanimity, nothing in the world cannot be forgiven, right? Because of generosity and good-naturedness, nobody in the world will not follow us. So because we're magnanimous, right, tolerant, forgiving, all that, nothing cannot be forgiven in the world, okay? Just like Maitreya Buddha, right, Happy Buddha, right? So he's the, you can say, the epitome of magnanimity, of, forgiveness or tolerance, okay? We should learn from that. Because of generosity and good-naturedness, right, if we are always very generous, coming from the heart, and good-natured, then of course, who wouldn't want to follow us? Okay, so because of forgiveness, later people those follow will not be disloyal, right? So this is kind of, you can say, for like rulers or whatever, or superiors, that we have to be kind of forgiving, sometimes lenient, not too lenient, but at least to forgive, and when people do make mistakes, whatever. That people will be loyal to us. I mean, if we're always very strict and if they make one mistake, they're out, then obviously, or punish them, then there's not going to be loyalty, right? Because of leniency, nowhere is the kindness and grace not praised. Yeah, so everyone obviously will praise that. All right, so let me see. I think that's okay. So yeah, sorry, we went over time here. We'll stop there and. We'll continue next week. All right. If I had said anything wrong, made any kind of mistakes or not satisfactory explanation, I asked the Buddhas for forgiveness, and also asked transmitting masters, lectures for their corrections. And thank you for your patience.